talking to JP Barreto. JP is one of the co-founders of Kinu, which is a space for capacity building and membership and mentorship for young ICT entrepreneurs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more.
Well, Kinu was established by 6 young Tanzanians in 2012, in January, to bring together the developer community, to build capacity within the community, but also to begin teaching a spirit of co-creation in the hope that we could spur an innovation within Tanzanian society.
Okay, and how do you see this co-creation? You bring people together with different profiles, or?
Well, a lot of it goes back to the actual naming of the organization. Kinu in Kiswahili is the mortar and pestle. In South America, it's called mokahete. In Europe, it's sometimes referred to as the apothecary grinder. And the idea behind it is that using ICT as a tool in our organization, we could bring in different stakeholders from all over. So we could take in guys from technology, guys from the public sector, from the financial sector, from the environmental sector, and grind them all together to get a product at the end of the day that was built locally for local problems.
Okay, so you bring people together who are aware of needs that exist, who have different skills, and who can then come up with an idea or develop it together.
Well, that's the, at heart, that is the biggest benefit of the co-creation process. That within any ecosystem or with any organization, when looking at problems, no one single actor can actually fill all the gaps in the market. So what we try to do is replicate what we teach with the work that we do. So for instance, when we do larger workshops, it's not just the developers by themselves. We actually try to bring in stakeholders from the environmental sector, from the financial sector, to actually find out what is going on, what are the needs of these sectors. Organizationally, when we work with other hubs around the region and working with a variety of actors, we generally try to use that same kind of process, saying that, look, we are really, if we are going to speak about co-creation, we must live it. And this is how we try to achieve a lot of things we do.
Okay, so very open space for just bringing people together. How do you try, or I assume you try to keep your barriers as low as possible for local tech developers or other people interested?
Well, that was the biggest thing. So we are situated on 2 major crossroads in Dar es Salaam. And the idea behind that was that anybody who wanted to get to Kinu could get to Kinu within 2 buses. So we try to place ourselves in a way that geographically it wasn't restricted. We don't actually have membership fees at this point because we found that a lot of the university students were paying enough for school, and we didn't want to create a barrier for them coming into the space. Our revenue streams include other events which are paid for, the rental of hot desk and other things. But at the same time, we didn't want to create any barriers towards being involved within the community.
Okay, that's cool. And you make sure that, like you said, that you get your funding from other sources. And so you say that you work together with other hubs in the region. What kind of, is that events that you organize jointly, or how should I?
Well, in the Tanzanian region, within Tanzania itself, we work within Dar es Salaam. We work with the other hubs that are around here. So there's several other hubs that have started up, and we work with them to try to build as vibrant of a community as possible. When we initially started up, people were always asking us, well, how do you work with these other hubs? And the idea is, well, serving the same community. So it's about sharing resources and trying to get, through this mass movement that we're creating, the ability to say, look, this is how we will build skills and capacity by sharing. If you look wider, we work with East Africa hubs and all over Africa. We have communications with hubs everywhere from Kenya all the way to Nigeria and Lagos, and recently all the way out to Berlin. So we work across a wide sector of partnering with different hubs on initiatives. In November, we're actually putting on a conference in Rwanda that has got different stakeholders involved to do tech and agriculture. It's the ICT for Ag conference. So we really try to be, to embody the spirit of sharing and co-creation as we work along.
Okay, so you're at the same time internationally and globally networked as you will look at local societal needs, right? Would you say that there is anything that sets either Tanzania or East Africa apart in terms of, I don't know, perhaps what the ICT space needs to move forward, or perhaps societal needs that you feel can best be addressed through innovation or?
I think the key point is that whereas the rest of the world looks at the problems of Africa, those problems actually are opportunities. That's the most important thing. Now, ICT can only ever be a tool. And so how do we use it to make the process of solving these problems, of plugging gaps in markets, of plugging gaps within supply chains, using this tool that makes the process more efficient overall? And I think that's the key point, is that with the evolution of these hubs coming up, we're actually seeing young Tanzanians, young Kenyans, young people all over the world actually begin to say, wait, I don't have to wait for somebody else to step in and solve this. I have the skill set to be able to make this, make my own country better.
Okay, so it's about looking at how a system works, looking at its process, and then identifying where there are gaps or where things can be improved? Or?
Well, I think that overall that is the key of it, in that within every system there is a process.
Yeah.
And so to make the system overall better, you have to be able to identify the parts of the process that are inefficient, take them out, and replace them with a more efficient part. For a young developer, what that means is that is actually the point of where, if you can recognize the inefficiencies within the system, within the process, you can then take those inefficiencies out and replace it with your product. I think M-Pesa was a perfect example of how that actually happened, where you saw there was an inefficiency and a barrier towards bringing people who didn't have access to traditional banking into actual being able to bank. M-Pesa, they took that inefficiency out and replaced it with a product, and then you had now a system that was more efficient.
And is there an example that you could give from here, things that people perhaps are working on or ideas that they're toying with?
Well, we have a lot of initiatives that are based around provision of services, so either in the education or health services. There's different platforms that are coming up, some of the projects coming out of here. We're working with other hubs around that are developing things that are aimed at making delivery of services a lot better. I mean, recently there's a project that started up with with a team of young developers from here. That's called Ubongo, which is actually trying to deliver educational videos to the masses over either radio or TV and mobile. So it's all about trying to plug gaps within the market.
Bongo is Dar es Salaam, right?
Yes.
That's okay. You also spoke to me about another, I think, a platform for content sharing that was called Bongo 5.
Yes.
Well?
That is actually, it started up in about 2003. And the idea was, it was actually a platform initially to be able to share, it was a social media site for the diaspora. The founder, Luca Nagesti, is actually one of the founders of Kinu. And he realized along the way that it wasn't just the diaspora that wanted to share this content and these stories, is that also Tanzanians, as internet penetration went up, wanted to be involved in this. And so now it has grown out to be a massive website, and they have an offline magazine that's published every month, where it really is about sharing videos and content and music within the Tanzanian community and the diaspora that's outside.
Fantastic.